In one of our videos, we set up a brooder for the old broiler chicks. If you haven't watched it yet, you can watch it in the link in the description below. Today, we are going to monitor the growth of those same chicks from 1 day old until they are 4 weeks old, ready for the market. So once you've set up your brooder, at day 3, you can now remove the magazines that you had spread out on the floor. This is because your chicks are now able to find the feed properly and are unlikely to consume the wood shaving. Remember, at day 1, the chicks had already been vaccinated against Marek's disease and Newcastle disease. On day 7, you can proceed to administer Newcastle disease vaccine booster. At 1 week old also, you have to make sure you maintain proper hygiene in the chicken house. If there's a lot of droppings on the floor, make sure to turn the wood shavings. Also provide enough feed and water. You can choose to either feed twice a day or once a day, but make sure your chicks have access to food and water throughout their stay in the brooder. After 1 week, you can now move the chicks from the brooder and take them to the larger poultry house. This is depending on your form of management. Some people prefer to move them after 2 weeks. Some prefer to move them after the first week. But this is depending on your management. This specific farmer opted to move the chicks after 1 week since the brooder was small. At day 14, you can now introduce the broiler finisher pellets, and anytime you're introducing new feeds, make sure to mix the new feeds with the older feeds. An example in this case, when changing the feeds, we first mixed a quarter of the broiler pellets and 3/4 of the starter crumbs. Then on the second day, we used 50% broiler pellets, finisher pellets, and starter crumbs. Eventually, you can now migrate to giving the broiler finisher pellets full time. Also, make sure to weigh your broilers so that you can monitor their weights, since you want them to be ready by 4 weeks for you to sell. You can see in this case at 3 weeks old, some of the chicks are already 1.6 kgs. This specific poultry house is well spaced, as you can see, and it has proper ventilation. As you introduce the broiler finisher pellets, you can now introduce the broiler booster rather than continuing to provide to give the chick starter. At 4 weeks old, most of these chicks are ready for the market, since most of them are more than 1.5 kgs live weight. However, you can find sometimes there could be a variation in the amount of in the weight of these broiler chicks, especially if you are not providing adequate feed, meaning that the feed that is provided, most of these chicks are scrambling for the feeds. However, it's also normal to find some of the chicks which are quite smaller compared to the others, maybe because of the genetics or basically the management. Some people prefer to keep their broilers until 6 to 7 weeks, which is also okay, but depending on how you're assessing your management, your productivity, the market at the time. Currently, a kilo of broiler meat in Kenya goes for between 300 to 350 shillings. That is approximately $3. Most of the broiler chickens weigh between 1.5 kgs to 2.5 kgs. So if you have a chick which is weighing 2 kgs dead weight, that means a farmer goes home with $6 or 700 shillings. Lastly, remember to regulate the temperature of your brooder. At week 1, you can maintain it at 35 degrees Celsius, then continue reducing it as you proceed. Week 2, you can maintain at 30 degrees Celsius. Week 3, 25 degrees Celsius. Week 4, you can reduce it to 21 degrees Celsius. If like for this specific farmer, she did away with the heat source after week 3.